Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our PFAS Action Response Team Otsego Community Awareness Update meeting. Welcome to all of you who have joined. Good to see we got about 15 people logged in, and I'm sure we'll have a few more people coming on. So my name is Jim Ostrowski. I work in Eagle's Environmental Support Division, and I'm going to help moderate today's session. I just got a couple of logistical issues to let you know about. All lines are muted right now, and we are recording the webinar, this public meeting, and we'll be posting it up on our YouTube channel in the next couple of days, so you'll be able to find it there just like you can find all of our public meetings. If you have a question tonight, we're going to first of all run through some presentations, but if you have a question, I think it's the next slide. You can submit your questions using the Q&A box on your Zoom toolbar. So you open that up and you type your question in. Also, when we do Q&A, you can click the raise hand icon. And if we have time, we'll be able to unmute you and let you ask your question. It doesn't look like we have anybody on the phone, but if somebody is on the phone, you just hit #2, and that shows us that your hand is raised and we can unmute your phone for you. So that's all the logistics I have. I'll turn it over to Abby. Abby, go ahead.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, everybody, for being here tonight. Appreciate your attendance. My name is Abigail Hendershot. I am the MPART Executive Director of the Michigan PFAS Action Response Team. Happy to be with you tonight. We were asked specifically to come and talk with the Otsego community about PFAS as a general awareness. So this particular presentation won't get into site-specific information around the Otsego area, but we are really asking people who might have received a letter requesting their well to be sampled from Department of Health and Human Services to stay tuned. Bill's going to come on and talk more about that effort to do drinking water sampling in the area. So he is about 10 slides down. So just hang in there. We'll get you to Bill. And I really want you to encourage everyone who got those letters to participate in that sampling. So thanks again for being here tonight. So let's go to the next slide. So our agenda for tonight is what is PFAS? What are we concerned about? What are the uses of PFAS? I think everybody's heard a lot of this discussion before, but let's just recap it in case there's anybody out there who's not heard it. And why are we coming to you tonight? What are the issues surrounding PFAS? What's Michigan doing about PFAS? And then we're going to cover, like I said, Bill Farrell is going to talk about drinking water sampling in Otsego area and where you can get more information. So we'll have plenty of time for questions and answers at the end. And as Jim said, go ahead and type your questions into the question and answer box and we will get to them. Like I said, we'll have plenty of time to go through that. So let's get started. So what is PFAS and why are we concerned? So PFAS specifically talks about per and polyfluoroalkyl substance. These PFAS refers to the full family of compounds. We think there's about 5,000 to 10,000 compounds in that family, but they are a family of very strong carbon-fluorine bonds. They have surfactant properties, so they're useful for lots of different things. They're very highly stable. You cannot break them down easily. But they repel water, oils, fats, greases. We use them for all kinds of things in our society. And they really started being developed in the late 1940s. Since that time, because there's so many uses of PFAS in our industrial society, they're very widespread through our ecosystem now. We're finding them in a lot of different media. We're also finding that they're pretty hard to break down. And they're hard to get rid of in a natural environmental setting. We do see that they bioaccumulate. So they do build up in our bodies, can build up in our fish. And some of the PFAS are going to have health effects. All of the different compounds have different chain lengths and different toxicities. So each one is specific, but we know there's some health effects associated with some of the PFAS. And there's a lot of science that's still emerging that we are figuring out about PFAS. And still are lacking those federal standards at the national level to regulate PFAS across the whole nation. So it makes it a little tricky. So PFAS uses, you're going to have seen a lot of these types of slides, but really we use PFAS in a lot of different types of everyday products. Scotchgard on our carpet, stain proofing, carpet cleaning products, some of our food packaging, all those grease resistant wrappers and stuff. Those are all usually coated in some sort of PFAS. You can bring your new couch home from the store and get it Scotchgarded. We're finding PFAS in cosmetics, our outdoor gear, of course, for waterproofing and clothing, the adhesives and sealants, protective coatings on our shoes, our boots, of course, that makes sense. And the nonstick cookware, of course, is the Teflon pans, was something that originally started using PFAS, late 50s. Car seats, and of course, the firefighting foam. Firefighting foam, not all firefighting foam has PFAS, but the firefighting foam that they use for at airports or for tanker truck spills, things that have high heat, high ability for explosivity, where they need to smother that fire because it's a very high temperature, petroleum type fires. Those are usually using PFAS foams because it works so well to smother those fires quickly. So part of the issue with PFAS is that it gets into our ecosystem, right? And there's many different sources or ways that PFAS gets into our ecosystems. The first is obviously industry. There's lots of different uses of PFAS in our industries. And as they discharge, we know that it can come out in groundwater discharges, out to a direct discharge to streams, or a discharge to a wastewater treatment plant. We also, like I said, talked about firefighting foam. We have firefighting foam, obviously not just at fires, but at airports, at fire stations, fire training centers. There's lots of different places that firefighting foam would be used. The wastewater treatment plants aren't designed for treating PFAS when it comes into the plant. So we have a lot of work going on around to understand the PFAS levels at wastewater treatment plants and what levels they are getting from the different industries. We know that landfills have PFAS levels. We know that both the materials that go into landfills have PFAS levels, and the leachate that comes out of a landfill will have PFAS concentrations, which again, usually would go to a wastewater treatment plant. So they're working on how do they break those cycles? Where do we stop the PFAS and not let it go any farther? All because we want to be able to protect our residential drinking water homes. We want to be able to protect that drinking water so our homes do not have exposure for our residents. And you should know that there's a lot of PFAS materials in the home, just like we were talking about with the PFAS in your carpet, in your paints, in your food packaging, in your clothing, in your wash water. There's a lot of it there. So those are some of the complexities of PFAS as we get into, just discussing what all the things that we have to think about. So some of the reasons that we want to be able to show that PFAS cycle is because it's really important to understand how PFAS gets into our environment, because drinking water and ingestion, Bill's going to talk about this more, but drinking water and ingestion is the main way as residents that you would get PFAS in your body. Drinking it and having it get into your bloodstream is that main association. Obviously, fish and fish consumption is another way, but there are some health effects, which I'm not going to go through here, but Bill will talk more about on the next slide or in the next presentation. So this is a video that was made by our MPART partners and just talks about the differences in residential drinking water well depths and why one neighbor may have contamination and another neighbor may not. So let's just listen for a second.
Sources of PFAS could include unregulated dump sites, landfills, firefighting foams, and factory waste. PFAS can seep through the ground and eventually mix in and flow along with the groundwater, the water that can be found underground. The PFAS that is in groundwater is called a plume. The amount of PFAS at any given point in a plume can vary as the groundwater moves along. Here we see the red section of the plume showing higher amounts of PFAS and the purple section showing lower amounts. This is one reason for potential differences between test results. The plume will move over time. As the plume reaches these wells, the amount of PFAS found in the water could change. Another reason is well depth. Here, the first well is shallower than the others and is drawing water and has the highest amount of PFAS. The second well is deeper and is drawing water with lower amounts of PFAS. The third well is the deepest and is not within the plume. No PFAS is found in that well. In addition to depth of the well, the type and structure of soil and rock around your well can alter how a PFAS plume can get to your well. PFAS can move easily through sand or gravel. However, soils with a lot of clay in them or some types of bedrock can prevent PFAS from getting to your well, or at least slow it down. How your well was constructed and how much water you use can also make a difference. This is a simple example of a plume. Plumes often have different shapes and move at different speeds. Some wells may be closer to the plume than others. Wells that draw water from the center of the plume area would have higher amounts of PFAS in their water. Lastly, consider the household products you use that might contain PFAS. These products have been used to waterproof, stain-proof, and create nonstick surfaces. They're used in most households. Products include many laundry products, carpets and upholstery treatments and sprays, waterproof clothing, and some cosmetics. Wastewater containing PFAS, such as carpet cleaning wastewater, can go down your drains and out into your septic field, and may result in low levels of PFAS in well water.
All right, excellent. Hopefully you all heard that. And part of the reason I wanted to show that video and why I think it's really important for everyone here to think about it is this is a map that I'm showing from, and there's the website up at the top of the screen, this water well viewer. So it's open to the public. This is a state website that everybody can look up their house or look for their water well. But this is a map of the Otsego area, and it just shows you all those little dots are people's wells. So there's a lot of drinking water wells in the Otsego area and surrounding areas that obviously we want to protect. We want to make sure that these wells are drilled correctly, that they don't contain PFAS or other contaminants. And so it's really important for us to have that concept in mind that as a well owner, it's important for you to evaluate the potential for there to be contamination around your well. So it's a little startling when you see this kind of map, but I think it's really important for you to have that picture in your mind. So let me tell you about what MPART is doing. And as I said, MPART is the Michigan PFAS Action Response Team. And what we have been working on is obviously protection of public health is the biggest thing that we've been, ultimately guides all of our mission and all of our actions. And so we've been in the last 4 or 5 years determining where PFAS sources are in the state. We're working on identifying those sources, the pathway, how does it get into all of the things that you saw on that PFAS ecosystem cycle, the industries, the wastewater treatment plants, the landfills, the biosolids, the firefighting foam, the residential drinking water wells that may be impacted. All of those things have been looked at in some fashion or form across our state. And so we're still working on developing those transport and fate models, looking at ecological effects. We've been working on standards, and obviously educating people, educating our residents is really, really important for us. So as I said, one of the things we've done is enact drinking water standards and cleanup criteria for the state for 7 different PFAS compounds. The most notable here is PFOA at 8 parts per trillion, PFOS at 16 parts per trillion. Those are 2 of the longer chain PFAS. PFOS has some very bioaccumulative effects. And so that's the one we seem to find most in surface water, find it a lot in fish, and do find it in a lot of our older legacy sites. But we do have 7 cleanup criteria as well as drinking water standards, and these are promulgated. So they are enforceable in the state from a regulatory standpoint, where the national federal standard, we don't have any federal standards to go with. So Michigan's very unique and very grateful to have gotten this passed so that we have a way to actually enforce regulations and protect public health. Some of the other ways that we've been working is sampling a lot of lakes and streams. A lot of our water sampling has been done. I'm doing a lot of fish sampling, and then obviously working on the direct discharges to water bodies so that we can make sure that those water quality standards are met for PFOS and PFOA as well. So right now it's PFOS is at 12 parts per trillion and 11 for PFOA at 12 parts per trillion for PFOS and 12,000 for PFOA in surface water bodies as water quality standards to protect for fish and other habitat. One of the other things that's been really important to look at and will be applicable to this particular area is our work with what we call our land application of biosolids group. And so biosolids are those solids that come from wastewater treatment plants. And because we know historically wastewater treatment plants could have had varying amounts of PFAS in them, we are working with our wastewater treatment plants now to make sure that those concentrations are decreasing because we're taking care of the sources. And we want to make sure none of the biosolids that are currently being applied are exceeding our interim strategy levels. And right now, we're seeing really good success rates with those wastewater treatment plant biosolids, sludges coming down and being protective. So additionally, we are now up to 189 sites in our state of Michigan for PFAS sites. These are all sites that have known groundwater that exceeds a drinking water cleanup criteria for one of those 7 compounds. And so then they get listed on our MPART website. All of 189 are on the MPART website with a site write-up. And I will show you the website here in a minute. But all of these are based on the unknown exposure, unknown groundwater exceedance. These are mostly going to be airports, landfills, manufacturing companies, tanneries, plating facilities, other industrial type facilities that are on this particular list, military sites as well. So if you're interested in that, you can definitely go out to our website and check those out. The other thing I want to just mention is that MPART also has a Citizens Advisory Work Group, which has a collection of people from around the state, from a whole wide variety of different areas of the state where PFAS have been, they've been affected by PFAS, either in their drinking water or in their community. And so we have this group of people, residents, who are, charged with helping MPART to empower and engage communities, helping us to, educate the general public. And so that's part of the reason that we're here tonight, is that one of our Citizen Advisory Work Group members suggested that we come and speak to you about MPART and PFAS and do a little one-on-one. So I'm going to take the next slide and turn it over to Bill Farrell, our toxicologist with the Department of Health and Human Services. Bill, you ready?
Yep, thanks, Abby. Good evening, everybody. My name is Bill Farrell. I'm a toxicologist with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. And I'm going to talk a little bit about our current understanding of the toxicology, the toxicity of PFAS compounds. And then I'm just going to touch on some of the work that we're currently doing, specifically collecting water samples from drinking water wells in the area. So I guess first, I want to start off by saying, how are we exposed to PFAS chemicals? The main, as Abby mentioned, the main route of exposure is ingestion of water that's contaminated with PFAS or biota, fish, for example, that may be contaminated with PFAS. The state of Michigan has a program where they collect samples of fish from surface water bodies across the state, and they analyze these fish for various contaminants that are known to bioaccumulate, including PFAS. And based on the concentrations and levels of the particular chemicals that are identified in the fish tissue, MDHHS works with Eagle to develop consumption advisories. And basically, there's a Eat Safe Fish website that you can go to, and it has all of the information about consumption advisories for a particular water body. If there is a consumption advisory for particular water bodies, if it's not in the Eat Safe Fish, as far as having a specific advisory, then it's recommended that you follow the statewide advisories, the statewide guidelines. So other ways that you can be exposed to PFAS is incidental swallowing contaminated soil or dust, eating food, packaged and materials containing PFAS, using some consumer products that have historically contained PFAS, including cosmetics. And PFAS absorption through the skin is typically not a concern because PFAS are not easily absorbed through the skin. Next slide, please. So Abby kind of mentioned some of the historical uses of PFAS. I mean, it's been used in all kinds of industrial and commercial applications. And as a result of its widespread and long-term use, it's been used for over 50, these chemicals have been used for over 50 years. As a result of this long-term exposure, everybody in the United States had, in the world actually, has some levels of PFAS in their blood. And what happens is when you're exposed to PFAS and PFAS gets in your body, it binds to proteins in your blood. So you can take a blood sample and you can actually measure the actual levels of PFAS chemicals in your blood. So this slide shows the average concentrations of several PFAS chemicals in the blood of the population of the United States over time. Basically, this work is being done as part of a study, an ongoing study that's being done by CDC called the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. Basically what it is just a survey that's been ongoing for years where they look at the nutritional habits of people in the United States. And one of the things that they do is they also collect blood samples and analyze for various chemicals. And this shows the average concentration of several PFAS chemicals in the blood of the population of the United States since 2000. And one thing I want you to note is if you look at the top line, for example, the green line, that is PFOS. And the interesting thing to note is that you see in 2000, the average concentration was about 30 micrograms per liter. And then you go to 2014 and you see the average concentration has dropped to about 6 micrograms per liter. And the reason for that is that in 2002, the United States stopped the use and manufacture of two specific PFAS, PFOS and PFOA, in products manufactured in the United States. So as a result of the stopping the production of those two particular PFAS, production and use, you see a decline in the exposure, which results in a decrease in the levels of those two particular PFAS in the blood of people in the United States. Next slide, please. So what do we know about exposure to PFAS and associated health outcomes? Most of what we know comes from studies, both human epidemiological studies and animal studies of two specific PFAS, PFOA and PFOS. And some of the associated human outcomes identified as a result of these studies include reduced fertility, high blood pressure or preeclampsia in pregnant women, small decreases in infant birth weight, higher cholesterol, especially total cholesterol and LDL cholesterol. Next slide, please. thyroid disease, liver damage, decreased immune system response to vaccines, developing certain types of cancer, in particular kidney and testicular cancers. And the cancers are associated specifically with exposure to PFOA. Next slide, please. So what is MDHHS and local public health doing in the area? Well, we're working with Eagle to sample drinking water wells in the area. To date, we sampled close to, I believe, 200 drinking water wells in the area, and we're continuing to do sampling. We evaluate the drinking water results and determine appropriate next steps. And we would mail the results to residents. We also would call residents too and try and answer any questions they may have with respect to exposure and potential health concerns and that type of thing. And then this, what I've done here is I put the point of contact, the phone number to call to schedule an appointment to have your water sampled. And next slide, I can talk a little bit more about that. So I think as many of you may be aware, we've been working with Eagle for a couple years now to do targeted sampling of residential wells near farm fields where paper making sludges were historically applied. And we've been doing this investigation, like I said, for a couple of years. I think we've sampled close to 200 residential wells. Well, Eagle continues through doing records review and talking to people who have historical knowledge of the area. Eagle continues to has been identifying additional farm fields in the area where these sludges were applied. So as a result of that, MDHHS in late August sent a letter to residents, to about 105 residents in the area, requesting to sample their residential wells. And again, these were homes, residents that were selected based on their location, their approximate location to farm fields that were identified that allegedly these sludges were applied. So next slide, please. So this is, I just wanted to show this letter because we didn't have a whole lot of contact information in terms of names of individuals. So we basically just sent a letter that was addressed to the resident and then the address. And this is the letter here. You know, some of you may have seen this letter, and I just wanted to kind of show this letter to let you know that it's not junk mail or anything like that. It's just our way of trying to get the word out to people that we would like to sample their well. And in the letter, there's a phone number that you can call to make arrangements to have your well sampled. So we've been out there sampling the past 2 or 3 weeks. I know we've done, in addition to sampling wells that have been scheduled to be sampled, we've also done door knocking and left door hangers on homes where we haven't heard any response from with regard to our letter. So we're continuing to try and sample as many of these wells as we can that we've identified for targeted sampling. So Abby, I guess I'll turn it back to you.
All right, thank you, Bill. Just a couple more things before we get too far. One of the things we wanted to give you as information is here's the website of that water well viewer that we were talking about here in the middle. Environmental mapper, this very first link is for finding contamination sites around you. So that'll be your gas station sites that might have leaking underground storage tanks. It might be some of your industrial sites. It might be a wide variety of things. Some of your landfills, they will be on this environmental mapper. And then this is our website for the PFAS response, MPART website. And so let me take you to that really quickly and just show you. Hopefully my screen's still sharing. You still see my screen, Bill?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so if you can see the PFAS Action Response Team page here. And one of the things I wanted to highlight is our Great Lakes PFAS Summit is now live, taking registrations for that December 6th through the 10th. And then all of our PFAS sites are here. It's both PFAS sites and areas of interest. So in this particular site, I do believe, we've got some information on Otsego and some of the additional slides and information. So like I said, this is not specifically about this particular investigation, but I know there will be upcoming meetings in the next few months to give an update to the community about some additional information. But there's a wide variety of maps and additional information here that you guys can definitely take advantage of. Other information, there are a lot of resources here for what every homeowner should know, PFAS in drinking water, some of our laboratories that might be offering free testing if you don't want to use the DHHS lab, and other associated information. So I just wanted to show that real quick. Okay, let's go back to the slides. And I think we're back to having, there we go. The next slide then is how to ask a question. So I think we're back to Jim kind of helping us to moderate if there's any questions in the question and answer box, or if we had any hands raised in the chat box or in the attendees.
Yeah, not seeing any questions right now. Want to let people, so if you have a question, make sure you type it in the question box and we can stick around here for a couple minutes and answer them. If anybody has any questions. If you check out the chat, I did plug in a bunch of web links. So a lot of the links that were mentioned during the presentations and a couple extra ones too. I popped into the chat, so you don't have to memorize those. You can just click on those links and access them. But yeah, so no questions right now.
Okay. And there are a lot of other resources out there for PFAS in general, but I think the next slide is just talks about MPART and the collaboration of agencies that make up MPART. I didn't really talk about it before, but DNR, DHHS that Bill is working for, EGLE, Department of Agriculture, Rural Development, ALARA houses our fire marshal division, which we do a lot with for our firefighting foam, our fire departments. MDOT houses all of our airports in our aeronautics division, and then our Department of Military and Veterans Affairs for all of our Air Force bases, Army National Guard bases. A lot of information and a lot of collaboration that goes on with MPART. So, all right. Hopefully, I was thinking maybe we'd have at least one question before we left. And
well, we do have a hand raised, so I can
go.
So I can go to that. So Mike, I just unmuted your line. So if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question, go ahead.
Yeah, hi there, Mike Gravesick at News Channel 3. Have you guys determined any health effects in any, found in anyone in the Otsego community traced directly back to PFAS? If not, is that obviously the goal of your, studies and research here?
Bill, you want to speak to that?
Well, with respect to PFAS, MDHHS is currently conducting an exposure assessment health study of 2 areas in the state of Michigan, basically the Rockford area, Belmont area, and Parchment area. These were areas where we know there's been historical exposure to PFAS in drinking water. And MDHHS is doing an exposure assessment and health study to try and collect information to provide additional information to help understand what the associated health effects are associated with exposure to PFAS chemicals. As far as a specific health study in the Otsego area, no, we are not doing one. But I would just say that the information that we get with respect to this health studies being done for people in the area of Belmont and Parchment, that information is very useful information because it helps us to understand overall what health effects are associated with exposure to PFAS. So, it benefits everybody. It doesn't just benefit the residents who participate in the studies. It benefits everybody to help understand what the health concerns, the risks associated with exposure to PFAS.
And lastly, what's the timeline of this study that you guys are doing right now in Otsego? What's the timeline until those results will be collected and analyzed?
Well, right now we're doing sampling, and we hope to complete the sampling within the next month or so, depending on what the response is, quite honestly. And then we expect probably to get the results probably towards the end of November, early December, I think. And then at that point, I think there's plans. I think once we get information, to have another town hall just to go update people with what we found, the results and stuff, and other investigation work that may be done concurrently with what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. As Bill said, that there is a broader investigation going on in the Otsego area. And so this is one small piece of it, but we thought it was really important to get the information out to residents so they could have the information to make the decision as to whether or not they wanted to have their well tested. And so DHHS has given these letters out to, like Bill said, 104 or 5 different addresses across the Otsego area. And so far, we really want to encourage people to participate in it. Okay, do we have any other hands there, Jim?
Oh, yep, another hand just went up. Pam, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you. I have a two-part question. One is for Bill Farrell. Bill, do you anticipate in the future, after the next town hall meeting, that there will be a health study done here in Otsego? That's my first question. And then my second question would be, how, as the members from MPART, how can Gail Dugan and I in this area help encourage those to get their well tested that letters have been sent out?
To answer your first question, no, we do not have any plans to conduct a health study in the Otsego area at this point in time. And I couldn't hear clearly the second question.
The second question is how can the members here in our area, which would be Gail Dugan and I from MPART, how can we help assist in getting the people to follow through that got letters to get their wells sampled?
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, we've at this point, we've gone back to homes where we sent letters and we left door hangers and knocked on doors. You know, I guess I'll ask folks out there if they have any other thoughts about how we might be able to reach out to people to help us get people to respond to the letter and allow us to sample their water.
Mm-hmm. And Bill, on behalf of Otsego community, you know, Gail and I are out here, you know, basically on the streets, and as has been Mary Zach. Can you help those that are listening tonight understand how they know there's an investigation going on in the area? They know that PFAS has been found, yet you're saying that MDHHS has no plans currently to do any health testing. Now, I say this because I don't know if Mary Zach is on tonight, but I know that there's a few people that's brought up questions about all the surveys that she had done in the beginning to get this initial investigation underway. Can you help the residents understand why, if there's PFAS that's been found, with you know, I guess in tandem with what her survey is. Why would the state choose not to start a health investigation? Can you help them understand that?
Well, as I said before, with respect to PFAS exposure, I mean, we are doing health studies in 2 areas where people have been exposed to PFAS. So, I mean, it'll help us to better understand exposure to PFAS and potential associated health effects. With respect to the Otsego area, right now we're still doing investigation. We are in previous public meetings, we talked about DHHS is working on a public health assessment, and that entails pulling all of this information that we can gather, including any historical information, as well as the data that we've been gathering and Eagle has been gathering as part of these investigations. And we're going to look at that information. We're going to go through our evaluation, and we're going to come to conclusions and recommendations. So that's the next step in terms of what DHHS is doing.
Thank you for taking time out to explain that.
Yeah, and I think, Pam, it's really important for residents to know that this is an iterative process, that every new data point, every new well that's sampled helps inform the bigger picture. And so whether it's Eagle's investigation for the actual contamination or it's DHHS's investigation for potential health effects to residents, the data is needed to be able to really inform those decisions. And so that picture becomes clearer and clearer over time as the data is received. And DHHS, as well as Eagle, is going to continue to keep an eye on what's going on in the community and what the results are telling us. So everything's iterative, it'll build upon itself, and we'll continue to evaluate the picture as we get the data.
Thank you, Abby, because I think it's important that, you know, our community hears this tonight, so that they don't have the fear that there may not be, you know, a future, you know, health assessment done. And it's been quite a while since we've, you know, heard anything. So I know they're anxious to hear what the results are going to be. I know that Gail and I have discussed about how can we in this area help MDHHS to get these people to get the well testing done so we can collect the data that we need to make further decisions to drive if there's going to be a health investigation or not.
All right, Pam, we'll talk with you offline and see if we can come up with some ideas.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill.
Yep.
All right, thanks. We did have a hand go up for a little bit, but it went back down. So just looking to see no more other questions in the question box. So, oh, went back up again. Hold on a second. So it's like Gail's got a question. Muting your line. Go ahead.
I just wanted to, instead of a question, I wanted to go and thank the entire team here at MPART and everybody that is participating tonight. Appreciate your time and the effort putting together this virtual educational PFAS 101. It really helps Pam and I to direct people to get more and better information instead of having questions and not the right answers. So I really appreciate and want to thank everyone that from the state that has pulled together this presentation tonight. And you really have helped us, Pam and I, be more professional and more informational when it comes to PFAS. And again, I thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Gail. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, Bill and Abby, looks like no other questions. So,
all right, excellent. And there will be, this is recorded, and we will put it up on probably both the Otsego MPART page that I showed you earlier, as well as our YouTube channel. So look for us out there, and we can share it with Pam, and she can post it to, I think, the Otsego Community Awareness page, and we can put it out on Facebook too. So thank you all for attending. I appreciate it. Anything else? I think we're good. All right. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.